Joining me now on set is Carl Skau, the Deputy Executive Director of the World Food Programme. Thank you for being back with us on the Al Jazeera NewsHour. So in this program, we've discussed multiple cases of dire humanitarian need and acute hunger, right, in Gaza, in Sudan. What is the WFP's biggest challenge right now?
Well, as you point to, conflict, climate change, but also now economic shocks is really driving up the number of people who are acutely food insecure. But in addition to that, the funding is coming down. So our biggest challenge is how to address this gap between rising needs and decreasing resources.
Okay, we'll address the funding in just a moment. I want to talk about Sudan. We just saw the report there by our correspondent, Stephanie Decker. The World Food Programme says that 1.7 million people, I want to get the numbers right, 1.7 million people are currently facing famine or at risk of famine in Sudan. Now, for context for our viewers, famine is a sort of objective criteria that is measured in the number of deaths, number of daily deaths, people dying because they don't have enough food. Now, if I do the math for 1.7 million people, that would mean between about 400 and 700 people dying every day if those people all end up in a situation of famine. Can they be saved at this point?
Sudan right now is the world's largest food and hunger crisis. And I think it's the largest hunger crisis we have seen in decades. The numbers are staggering. We have confirmed 10 spots where there is famine. And like you say, people are dying of starvation in large numbers. We're doing everything we can to support. We are assisting around 3 million people on a monthly basis, but it's not enough. We are aiming to get to 8 million people, but we have serious access constraints. Both parties are putting deliberately obstructions on our work, and so we need access and we need resources to really scale up our efforts. But we're doing everything we can, and we are saving lives.
So you cannot currently get food to all the people who need it and who are dying for lack of food?
No, that's correct. I think out of the 10 hotspots, we are only serving a few. We were able to get to Zamzam a couple of months ago, the refugee camp that has now been under attack over the past couple of days. But in the past few weeks, we have not been able to access that. And 10 of the colleagues working for one of our partner organizations in Zamzam was also among the dead in the past few days.
Yeah, Relief International.
Exactly.
And that was earlier this month when the Zamzam camp was attacked by the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces. There were 500,000 people in that camp. Tens of thousands more by now have fled because of that attack. So you say you don't have access, and you said both sides are hindering access. That means you go to see the RSF, you go to see the army, and you say, on the other side of this, at the end of this road, there are people dying. We need to get food to them. And they say what?
Well, there is always different kinds of excuses. I think both sides are concerned about diversions. But I mean, we have people on the ground who can ensure that the food are reaching the people that needs it the most. And
diversion meaning what? They're afraid that your food is not going to end up in the mouths of poor Sudanese people, but rather will end up feeding the people that they're fighting.
Those are concerns that are being raised, but we have monitoring systems in place to address that, and we are assured that we reach those most vulnerable. And I think, you know, the needs are so great now that these are issues also on the margin. We need to be able to get to scale, and we need to be working through the different modalities. So bringing food is one modality, trying to bring cash is another, and we're also working with local communities to see how we can support them help themselves. So we are, in a way, tapping in to all the different ways that the Sudanese themselves are trying to use to cope. And I think it's important to remember that the situation would be even worse if it wasn't for the Sudanese themselves and the Sudanese outside who are trying to assist their families and friends in Sudan.
You said that 10 humanitarian workers were killed earlier this month during the attack on Zamzam camp. Do you feel that humanitarian workers, and I'm not just thinking of Sudan, of course you work across multiple crisis spots in the world, do you feel humanitarian workers are now less protected than they used to be, more expendable in the eyes of belligerents perhaps than they used to be?
Certainly. I mean, the number of humanitarians who died last year was a record. The year before was a record before that. So, I mean, it is a completely different environment. It goes beyond security. While that is the most serious challenge, it goes beyond security. I mean, the humanitarian principles and international humanitarian law is disregarded at a level we've never seen before. Many actors feel they get away with that behavior, and so humanitarians are trying to navigate an unprecedented, challenging minefield, frankly, in terms of disrespect for principles, for humanitarian law, but also then with security incidents. We have had WFP colleagues also killed in Sudan, but also in other contexts in the past year.
So you mentioned funding shortfalls earlier in the conversation. You need access to the people who need help. You need to be able to access them, and you need the funding to actually provide the aid that they need. How much money does the WFP need?
Well, we have a 40% drop from last year, which means that we are now trying to turn every stone and to do more efficient work, also target the most vulnerable. We are in a way cutting the hungry to now give to the starving, because at the same time as we are having less money, there are new needs. The DRC has flared up over the past few weeks with hundreds of thousands of people on the move that needs assistance. Last week in South Sudan, fragility increased and there were new displacement that needed to be addressed. In Myanmar, a couple of weeks ago with the earthquake, a few 100,000 people impacted that we also needed to support. WFP was there within 48 hours. So both natural disasters, economic shocks and conflict is driving up the number of people who need our assistance, and the funding is coming down. So obviously we need more resources, no doubt about that. We are trying to diversify, tap into private resources, and we are trying to be as efficient, as effective as we can.
Talk to us about the situation in Gaza. 2.4 million people live inside the Gaza Strip. For the last 6 weeks, nothing has gone in. No food, no water, no medication. And we know that the groups that are working there, we were reporting on it earlier in this program, are now really stretching their resources very thin to breaking point. Where is this headed?
I mean, first, during the 42-day of ceasefire, we really proved that we can do the work. We moved in 7,000 trucks. We opened 25 bakeries. We had these street kitchens across the strip, not least in the north, where people didn't really have their own means to cook. So we showed we can do it. We also packed up a lot of commodities. So over these past 6 weeks, we have been able to distribute. We have been running bakeries. But last week, we closed all the bakeries. We have now run out of stocks for our food distributions. And I think in the next couple of days or so, we have to close the last street kitchen. So we are now reaching a breaking point. And we are insisting that borders be open and so that we can bring in new commodities and continue our life-saving work.
Breaking point means what?
We are running out of our stocks to deliver. That doesn't mean that there may not be other stocks available. People might have some food in their homes, but we are running out, and by Monday, I think we will not be able to continue with our street kitchens. And that means that from WFP's point of view, there is nothing left. And we have been assisting over 1 million people over these past few months.
Okay, today's Thursday, and you're saying that by Monday, the WFP stocks will have run completely dry. Now, you're here in Doha to discuss humanitarian diplomacy. Is there something that Qatar can do to help WFP gain access again to the Gaza Strip? Do you see a scenario where there's more WFP food going into Gaza at some point?
I mean, Qatar plays a key role in trying to broker a ceasefire, which would obviously allow for again be delivering at the scale and the volumes that we did during the 42-day ceasefire. So important for us to be informing the Qataris about the situation on the ground, where we have many staff, so that they can bring that to the table as they negotiate this ceasefire and the humanitarian provisions in such a ceasefire. But obviously, my conversations go beyond that. Syria is another hotspot where we are trying...
Pause for just a second, if you wouldn't mind. Have you also put that question to Israel? Because WFP has tons of food, as I understand it, waiting just outside the Gaza Strip, in trucks, ready to enter. And of course, Israel is the party that is not allowing the food to enter.
We are engaging with the Israelis on a daily basis.
What do they say?
Well, they say what they say publicly, that they are so far not ready to open the borders for us to cross. But we are insisting on that publicly and privately, and we are pushing to also have an operating environment inside that is conducive and that allows us to reach those most vulnerable.
But this is the deliberate starvation of more than 2 million people. You are the world's largest humanitarian group speaking to a state that is deliberately starving people. And you're the United Nations. You're apolitical. You don't take sides in this conflict. You just feed people who need food. So again, I have to ask you, what are those conversations like with Israel? Is there not like some wiggle room? I mean, clearly there hasn't been in the last 6 weeks, but is there not a scenario where some food could go in?
Well, we hope so, and we are pushing for that on a daily basis. And should there be an opening tomorrow, you can be sure the WFP is ready, both to bring food inside and to deliver it to the most needy inside Gaza. We've done so from the start of this conflict, and we will continue to take every opportunity there is to deliver and to save lives.
What else is at the top of your to-do list?
Well, it's a long list,
Yeah.
As I said, I think over the past few weeks we have been concerned about the situation in the Eastern DRC, also now South Sudan. But I would add to that, across the conflicts that we are working in, most of the time the situation is deteriorating. Right now in Syria, there is an opportunity to change that trajectory and to do something that is better for the country and for the people. We have strong capacity in Syria, and we also have presence, and we really appeal to donors to step in so that we can deliver a sense of change for the Syrian people. Much have changed in Syria, but what has not changed is the suffering of the Syrian people, and that must be addressed with some urgency.
We have discussed Sudan, Gaza, Syria, and we're talking about situations where hundreds, thousands, maybe more are dying or will die due to lack of food when there is food available. We're talking about belligerents that are not letting you access people who need this life-saving aid. Is the world, am I a prisoner of the moment, or is the world perhaps a less generous place, a less compassionate place than it has been?
I mean, it's certainly a frustrating moment, and on days it feels impossible. There is a challenge to the rules-based order, to the respect for international humanitarian law, and frankly, I think there is a lack of solidarity at times. So I really thank you and other News Challenge for bringing attention to these crises, because I think out there among the public there is concern, and I hope that the public also step up and draw attention and push their leaders to do more to end these conflicts, but in the meantime also do more to make sure that we can alleviate the suffering of the people who are trapped in these conflicts.
Carl Skau, Deputy Executive Director of the World Food Programme, the world's largest humanitarian aid organization. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.